Hi, everyone. Welcome to our NextGen Podcast. And today we have a very special guest, not just Sumaya and myself. We have Claire Bennie. Claire is the franchise head of the Somerset West Aldea branch, but she's also an internationally certified neurofeedback and behavior practitioner. But above all of that, the reason why Claire is here today is because Claire is very much a mom. She is a professional, hardworking single mom. And that brings a whole different aspect to what Claire has to offer parents and professionals at Aldea. So we asked Claire to open up about her journey today. And Claire, I know it's going to be raw and honest, but that's what we love about you. So please tell us a little bit about your personal journey.
Hi, everyone. So my journey as a special needs mom or parent has been a curveball, a learning curveball. Ella has been my greatest teacher. I think I wouldn't have been able to do a lot of the things that I am doing if it wasn't for her. So Ella is 11 years old. She was formally diagnosed in January with autism. She's got ADHD. She's extreme demand avoidance disorder. That was a mouthful. And emotional regulation of a 6-year-old. So this diagnosis, although I'm very familiar with the different special needs and the different diagnoses out there, it's a whole new ball game when it's your own child. I had a lot of mixed emotions. I had a lot of cries and sad times. But then I realized that I needed to be her advocate. I had to reframe my mental health and my way of seeing things in order for me to be a good mom to her and help her through everything that she's going through. She needs a safe space. And in order for her to get that safe space, I need to be that advocate for her. So she's basically taught me how to love, have lots and lots of patience. And we literally have empathy and we celebrate every victory, no matter how big or small.
I think that's absolutely amazing. Sorry, yeah, Cherie.
No, I just want to say thank you, Claire, for sharing that.
Oh.
That's so fantastic. And you mentioned now that, you had to learn to be an advocate for Ella. And I think my next question to you would be is how has your professional background influenced your approach to parenting?
It's a good question. It hasn't been easy. When I started with Aldea, I was in that professional world of helping other neurodiverse children and their families. But like I said earlier, it's a whole new ball game when it's your own child. So there are certain things, nothing prepares you fully to know what you're actually doing. You can have as much professional background, but each child is different. So what I do with my clients won't necessarily help Ella in the long run. So for me, that built my foundation. So I knew quite a lot when I joined Aldea, and I also used to be a special needs nurse. So I worked with those children as well. So putting that all together, I realized what the do's and the don'ts were. But like I said, not all of them pertain to Ella. So what would help with other kids would not help with her. And then there's things that I had to invent to be able to help Ella. So it has given me a good foundation to try and navigate Ella in her capacity of home and school. But yeah, every day is different. So it has helped. But it's also a learning curve on what does work and what doesn't work.
Sure. Claire, thanks for that very honest answer. When Sumaya and I had to decide what will be the next topic for the podcast, Sumaya told me that so many of her clients right now feel so overwhelmed as parents, and they just feel that they are not enough. And even this week in my office, I told parents there's just no wrong way to do this. And you never get a handbook to say, if your child behaves like this is what you do. And even though we've been in this industry for so long, every child is new. So I cannot imagine what you have been going through. Can you maybe give me an example of a challenge that you faced and how you actually overcame that challenge?
I think the biggest challenge that I faced was when Ella was still in the mainstream school. That was my biggest fight, because our mainstream schools are not equipped and then not educated on how to work with neurodiverse children. So with Ella, she has a lot of sensory challenges and noise sensitivity. And when it comes to putting that little girl into a classroom full of overcrowded classrooms, she would struggle. And it was scary because she would come home and she would cry because she had a really tough day. And then it was sitting down with homework and with concentration. That is a very big problem with the ADHD as well as the autism. Then it's a huge task for her. So that was my biggest fight, because some of her teachers were great. And then you had some teachers that would shout at her, and that's a big no-no. You do not shout at Ella. So then she shuts down, and that's when she would have her meltdowns and her outbursts. So the biggest thing for me was I took her out of the mainstream school and I decided to do homeschooling. That homeschooling is not a quick fix solution, because she does struggle in homeschooling. But I have noticed since she started with homeschooling, her marks have improved. We go at her own pace. And if she is not having a good day, we stop, take a breather, do deep pressure, and we start again. It's with the mainstream schools, it's more of, okay, when the bell rings, you're done, close your book, and whatever you haven't completed in class, she would have to bring home and do as homework. And that's on top of all the other homework she had. So in all her subjects that she had, she never, ever completed a task in class. And the teachers would not understand that, because she would come home and she's so exhausted. And then I eventually wrote a note to the teacher. I'm like, listen, homework was not done. We got as much as we could. 4 o'clock is our nightmare time. So past 4 o'clock, I'm not forcing her to do anything. So we will try and do catch up. And sometimes the teachers did not understand that. And that was our biggest problem, because we're trying. She wants to do the homework. She wants to try and do it. But when all that pressure is on her, the anxiety flares so much, and then it's crying the entire time. And then nighttime routine is totally out the window, because now she's overstimulated, she's overwhelmed. And so I think the biggest thing for me the challenge was taking her and watching her in a mainstream school, and then taking her out to a safe space. She wakes up when she needs to wake up. She does the school time until she can't anymore, and then we're done.
And so, Claire, I'm hearing a lot of, how you've been there for Ella, of course, as such a loving and understanding and just an amazing parent for Ella, and how you listen to and understand her needs. And of course, there's, the amount of struggles that those little bodies, those little minds have to go through early on in their lives, when they don't even understand themselves quite yet. I think for any caregiver or parent of a child with special needs, you go through a lot. I think there's physical exhaustion, emotional exhaustion. And I want to know from you, what are certain steps that you take or things that you implement to make sure that you take care of yourself and look after your own well-being?
So self-care as a special needs parent is not easy. My example with Ella is she suffers from severe anxiety. So when it comes to, she always wants to be with me. But I have really got a big support system where I've got my parents that can take her for a while, or I've got my best friends that will take her for a while or keep her occupied. Trying to navigate all of that, I micromanage my time to try and get me time in. So when Ella's not in the car, I blare the music on the highest volume. I'm going to probably go deaf a lot sooner than others, but I blare it and I sing and I dance in the car wherever I'm going, because that's my time I can't have the radio or the music loud because it affects Ella. So when I haven't got her, I take that opportunity to actually make myself deaf. And then the other thing, recently my kids at my academy started horse therapy. So I need my own therapy. So I decided to take on one particular horse who I'm madly in love with. Baloo has been my constant, where no matter how, like yesterday, I had a horrible day. I was overwhelmed, overstimulated myself. And the minute I got to the stables and I saw Baloo, I was instantly calm. He's got this gentle giant that could probably pull you over, has got this thing where he gives you hugs. My heart melted the minute he comes up to you, and then he gives you a hug, and then I'm automatically fine. So I'm out of my own have made the decision to go riding again. I used to ride when I was younger, when I had the opportunity. So now I'm going to take that on again, where there are no children involved. So I'm going to go for a long ride and have fun, and just have fun with my favorite horse.
Oh, that sounds amazing, Claire. That sounds absolutely lovely. And I think, it's so good that you have identified ways of self-care. But I think as a parent, there's so many constant struggles, but there's also so many rewards. And we've been on this journey with you, and at Aldea, we have a very soft spot for Ada. But I want to ask you as a mom, what is one of your most rewarding things of being a parent? What do you love the most?
I think when she can be herself. I think it's very hard for Ella to open up in general. So when she opens up and laughs and has a giggle and she accomplishes something, like we're doing assessments at the moment, and she got 96 for a subject, and she was so excited, and she called me because she was by my mother doing the test, and she was super duper excited that this 96 appeared on the computer screen. And it's the small things. I mean, marks are important, but it's not the be all and end all of everything. But she was like so excited to, Mommy, I got 96 for math. And I mean, I don't think I would have ever got a 96 for math. So that's a huge accomplishment for an 11-year-old. But for me, I think when she's happy and she's safe, and she has those little moments and her own victories, to see that and a smile on her face, I think that's my biggest reward out of everything.
I think definitely, I can't even imagine, I think to experience those victories, those times where she's just giggling, smiling, just absolutely taking it all in. I think you can't really describe it to anyone else unless you're actually there, unless it's maybe your child. Shiri, I'm sure you can agree with that. You know your child the best. And you mentioned earlier when we spoke about your self-care, you mentioned that you have such an amazing support system. You mentioned family, you mentioned your best friends. And just now you mentioned that Ella was at your mom's house. So how do you educate your family and your friends on Ella's needs and explain to them, I almost want to say the ins and outs of Ella, because there's a little bit more, for instance, what you said just now with her being auditory sensitive, that's something that you need to keep in mind. So how do you necessarily educate your friends and family?
Look, it's an ongoing journey when it comes to educating a lot of people. A lot of people don't understand. You can talk to somebody about the ins and outs, but they won't fully understand. So, for example, I love to give family and friends resources to read through. So I saw the other day a post about autism, explaining what it's all about and what the triggers could be. And I sent it to everyone, my mother, my brother, my sister, you name it, I sent it, so that they can just have a little bit of an understanding. Like I said, they won't fully understand because they're not the ones who are in the house with you. My mother has used Facebook as a source of reference. A lot of autistic and ADHD things pop up. The minute you type in those headings, then every day something comes up. But she's educated herself and she goes to the library and she takes out books about the kids that have got autism and stuff. I think our biggest diagnosis that we struggled with was the extreme demand avoidance disorder. We knew absolutely nothing about it. It was Greek to me when the psychiatrist told me about it. So I had a lot of learning to do as well. So we don't like Mr. Google, so we try and speak to professionals that actually have worked with him before. And Ella's medical team they gave me information on that to be able to help me, and I just sent everything on to everybody else. So whatever I receive, I just give to them.
I think that's lovely that you have such a supportive family.
Yeah.
I see a lot of parents that I see say that's their biggest struggle, because you get invited to family gatherings and they just don't understand, and then you'll never get invited again.
Yeah.
So I think it's very tough to say my child is different and please listen and read the resources that you send.
Yeah.
Because a lot of those environments can cause meltdowns. And I think you've dealt with your whole string of meltdowns in your life before. What do you usually do to actually cope with meltdowns of Ella? Maybe sensory challenges or other meltdowns? What do you do? I'm sure at home it's much easier than it actually is when you are not at home. So how do you cope with that?
So many people think that meltdowns, the children are misbehaving, which is furthest from the truth. They are overwhelmed, they're overstimulated, and they don't know how to voice their challenges at the time. So Ella, although she's very verbal and she can tell you exactly, Miss Attitude can tell you exactly what she wants, but in that time of the meltdown, you can get nothing out of her. So in my place, we've got in home and school, we've got a calm down corner or calm down area where when you can see there are certain signs that she pinches herself or she will move her legs up and down, and then something's happening, and we try and prevent it before it happens. We act on the triggers immediately, but sometimes even if you act on it immediately, it still doesn't work. So noise cancelling headphones, sensory items, let her play with the sensory things. She also has her service dog, Bella, who will eventually be fully trained, and that's her anchor to help her cope with deep pressure as well. I find with Ella, if I give her deep pressure for about 10 minutes, then she slowly starts regulating her emotions again, and then she can calm down, stop crying, stop screaming, and then she can then tell me exactly what's wrong. It can be the smallest little thing, that she couldn't find something, or she missed something on the counter. She's got this fear of disappointing people. So if something messes, then she thinks it's a huge thing, and then the trigger happens. When she is struggling with schoolwork, she'll sit there, she won't voice her opinion to me and say, Mommy, listen, I'm really struggling with this. Then she will start acting where she struggles to breathe, or she breathes really fast. And then we try and nip that. She's got a little teddy that she will sit with it in her classroom by her laptop, and then she's calmer. So each child is different, so each coping mechanism is different for them as well. We've got to find what's easier for them. I've got another student who calm down is a hug. So I would give her a hug if she's really having a hard time, and then after, say, 5 minutes, she regulates herself and she's fine again. So it depends on what's wrong at the time, but the triggers, you need to have a safe space for them to be able to express their meltdowns. Obviously, we want the meltdowns not to go on for very long, but I believe in not cutting a meltdown shorter than it should, because they need to. That's the way they express themselves. That is the way they talk to us. So those non-verbal children, it's a struggle for them, because we can't, no matter how hard we try and figure out, we don't know. Whereas it's the same with Ella. Ella automatically becomes non-verbal when she's in that meltdown. And we have to try and figure out how we're going to do it to get her out of it.
And I think that is the information that you just gave us is absolutely golden. I think that there's so many parents out there, that struggle with these meltdowns. And also with the information that they give other people, because like you said earlier, other people don't necessarily understand. So I think what you just said is absolutely crucial. And I think it will really guide others to be able to implement some of the things that you've just said. But we know that one of the triggers that often take place in children with autism is that, a change in routine, especially if it's unexpected. You mentioned earlier, when Ella got home from school and she was overstimulated, she was tired, not wanting to do homework, etc., and an emotional meltdown started, then that sent your entire evening routine, down the drain. And we know how important a routine can be. It creates a certain bubble of certainty of what to expect. So how do you navigate changes in routine with Ella?
So we try and not change routine as much as we can, but there's unpredictability. So we know change will happen. So if I know something is going to happen, I prepare her well in advance. Or we use visual schedule. So visual schedule is a very good thing for Ella. She needs to see. So because Ella can read, I write all the stuff. So when we're going to a doctor's appointment or a psychologist appointment, or even just the horse riding, then she needs to know. So if I spring something on her, it's a meltdown first before we can. And then sometimes I spring something on her and then we don't even get the opportunity to go out. It's not easy for her to change. She likes the predictable side of things. So we use the visual schedule. And we also, if I know we are going to a shop at 6 o'clock, I will tell her at 3 o'clock already that, listen, we're going to go to the shop and we're going to do X, Y, and Z. She's not good with crowds either. So even a shop, as much as she loves shopping, she's a real girly girl, it gets too much for her. So I need to prepare her well in advance. Or if we are going to church, for example, I need to tell her Saturday afternoon already, listen, tomorrow's Sunday, we are going to go to church tomorrow. We're going to pick out your clothes, what you're going to wear. And then there are times where Sunday rolls around and she refuses to get out of bed. So it's luck of a draw, I suppose, because sometimes she is willing to accept a little bit of change. And then there are times where she will not change at all. So we've got to try and navigate that in a sense to make her feel safe. Okay, I'm going now, that I want to do this. We got to get the anxiety at bay in order for, because that's what the meltdowns actually technically go around when we have to go out, or if something changes, it's the anxiety that builds up, and that's when the meltdowns start. So yeah, we try and not change any plans as much as we can, because we'd rather have a happy Ella than a 3-hour meltdown because something happened and it wasn't supposed to happen.
Sure, Claire. I think, listening to you, I can very much understand why parents always relate to you so much, because you are such an honest person, and you go through the same struggles and you always try to understand. I think a lot of people actually see parents of kids with special needs as very difficult people to be around, but you have to be, because when you spoke about your personal journey, you said you have to advocate for your child. And, I think it's not always easy, especially in a society where it is a foreign concept. Meltdowns aren't very understandable by people who don't deal with them every day. So it might look like just a difficult child because change is happening. But how do you advocate for Ella, not only in society, but with her medical care and with her team that works with her and in society in whole? How do you manage to do that?
So when it comes to her medical care, I go to every doctor, hospital, psychologist appointment very prepared. I've got a folder which just says Ella Bennie on, and I just chuck everything that they need to know into that folder, and I make sure people think we're very rude because we are, sorry, just hold on for a sec. The door opened. People think we're very rude because we are very abrupt. We are telling these people there's something wrong with my kid, and then they say, no, she looks perfectly fine. Meanwhile, I know as her mom, she is definitely not fine, because at 2:00 in the morning, she's having an outburst, and they say, but she's fine now. There's nothing wrong with her. I'm like, it doesn't work that way. So in the beginning, our medical team did not believe me when I told them certain things that I've noticed, what I've seen, and I fought them on it. And I made sure they knew exactly. I said, my child doesn't sleep at night. The last thing us as special needs parents want is our kids to be on medication. We don't want our children on medication, but if it's going to help them function like a normal child, or not normal's not the right word, but function in a daily challenges that they've got, I'm all for it. Ella is on chronic medication and she takes it 3 times a day. She takes 2 different sleeping tablets because she hasn't got enough of the melatonin in her brain to say, okay, it's nighttime now. We need to go to sleep. So I fought them on that because they kept saying to me, but Claire, she's too young. At the time, she started at the age of 4. So they say, but she's very young. I'm like, okay, so are you going to look after her at night when I need to still get up? When I was a nurse back then, so I had to wake up at 6:00 in the morning, work a 12-hour shift, come home after 7, and then still have to deal with everything else. So you will do something because I won't leave this room until you do. So they think we are very rude, but at the end of the day, I'm her voice. She can't fight for herself. She can't tell the doctor. The doctors are very quick to say, oh, so how do you feel today? She doesn't understand and know that I need to be honest with the doctor and say, listen, this is what's happening. She hasn't got that vocab, whereas I do. So I will tell them she's not sleeping, or she's not eating, or she's not wanting to do certain things. She's depressed. Okay, she's depressed at the age of 10, 11 years old, but I know the signs of being depressed. I've worked with children as well as adults who have been depressed. So my child needs help now, not tomorrow, not yesterday, now. So you got a choice. You either help me sort my child out, or I'll be sitting here all day. And I'm prepared to do that.
I think it's so important. There's so many things that you just mentioned that I thought, yeah, thank goodness you said that, because there's so many misconceptions with regards to children with special needs and their parents, just like Cherie said earlier, for instance, just to name a few that you mentioned just now, medication. We had a webinar the other night where we addressed that situation on medication and what to think about it, how to feel, because there's a very negative stigma that is sometimes attached to medication that is not necessarily always the way to go. And I think that as a parent, like you said before, there were so many professionals that questioned you, that told you, but that's not what's happening. She's fine. And I think it's also important to know that you as parents have the right to really go for it and ask the professionals, the medical personnel, your medical team, I want answers. I need answers. What I've gotten so far, to advocate for your child in that way. And not feel like, but I think I'm being too much now. It's very important to know that you have a voice and you have the right to have that voice heard. So in terms of, how to handle these situations, what to think about the certain situations, what would you say to a parent that has just started this journey? What advice would you give them?
Oh, I've got a lot. Breathe is number one. I think as parents, stop breathing when our children struggle. Ask a lot of questions. You can never ask, no question is wrong. So each child is different. So if your child is struggling, there is another parent that is going through something either similar or they went through it. So ask as many questions as you can. If you need to cry, cry. It's not a bad thing to cry. I cry all the time. So I think the important thing is to ask a lot of questions. No question is wrong. Each child is different. So the fact that there's a parent that has gone through it, or they are going through it, or it's happened before, they are there to be able to help you. It's the same with the medical professionals. They are there to help you. So make sure you ask those questions. Cry. There's nothing wrong with crying. I cry a lot. There's times where things get so frustrating and so overwhelming for myself. So it's not just the children, that we are our children's diagnosis. So we are the ones that are fighting the same battles that they are fighting. So if you are emotional, or if you are struggling, you let it out. Put on the loudest music and sob and get it out, because bottling things up, I had to learn that way, where I bottled things up. I didn't tell anybody. I didn't, so much so that I had my two best friends rock up in my house because I didn't talk to them for 2 days. They knew something was wrong, and they rocked up in my house trying to figure out what was going on. But I also dipped. I, as a parent, was having a really rough week with Ella, and I dipped myself. So that support system is also, you've got to build that support system. It takes a village to raise a child, but it takes an army to raise a special needs child. You need to find your army. You need to be able to have that support. If you don't have family or if you don't have friends, there are other outlets that you can go to.
Yeah, I think that is so lovely that you mentioned that, Claire, you were an expert parent in my research study on online parent support groups. And I would like to find out from you, what type of support groups do you have or do you belong to, both online and in person, where you have the support of other parents of kids or other caregivers of kids with special needs? And how do that make a difference in your life?
So personally, I've got my family, I've got my best friends, I've got some of my clients have become friends too, because our kids are exactly the same. So I will message and say, did your child do this today? Because mine did this, type of thing. So that's the family and friends aspect, the personal. I have joined many groups on Facebook and WhatsApp. Aldea's also got their own support group as well, which is very nice because we are all in this together. I think the biggest platform, and it's super helpful, is the Daniel and Friends Fund. Leonie, I used to look after her son before he passed away. And she started in memory of him, this group. And it's a bunch of special needs parents with their special needs children. And there are groups on Facebook as well as WhatsApp where if you need a doctor or a specialist or just a cry or a vent, you can do that on whichever platform you're on. And for me, knowing that there's somebody else going through that, it's easier to maintain and to cope. The other day, it's a silly thing. Something happened and I texted somebody and I said, because our kids have got the exact same diagnosis. So I sat there and said, listen, today's not a good day. She's like, me too. I swear our kids are in sync because every time Max has a bad day, so does Ella. So it's like we bounce off each other to try and help. And I met her through the Daniel and Friends Fund. So people to join that group itself is a huge help in references and getting that venting out.
Oh, Claire, I just want to hug you. I wish you were closer. Really, I think your advice and just opening up about everything that you did, I really appreciate that. I think there are going to be so many parents who benefit from this conversation. So I'm sure Sumay and myself, even though we are in different places, we send so much hugs to you and Ella. I think you do just an absolutely incredible job, not just as a professional, but as a single mom of a child who has her own challenges. I think you bring so much honesty and just being real to the table. So I just want to say thank you so much. Thanks for being with us. It's truly been remarkable.
No, thank you. Appreciate it. I wouldn't have been able to do it without you guys either.
I also just want to say from my part, thank you so much, Claire. Like Cherie mentioned earlier, there's so many moms that have come across my path in the last couple of weeks that have told me, I don't know what's going on. I think, I really feel like a failure as a parent. And I think, honestly, what you told us today and everything you've been through, what you're doing to cope, your self-care, your support system, everything like that is just truly inspirational. And I think it's so amazing that other people can listen to you and know that they have someone to relate to. So thank you very much for that.
Well, thank you.
Thanks, Claire. Send our love to Ella.
I will. Love to everyone there. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.